Welcome back. And today we're going to start a story, and I'm going to sing a little song that I learned when I was in high school, because our youth group had a play that we did. It was a musical, and it was based on the story that we're going to hear from the Bible. And it was about three kids, and their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the song that we sang in high school goes something like this. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego lived in Judah a long time ago. They had funny names and they lived far away, but they set an example you can follow today. This is a story that you ought to know about Shadrach. Who has a name like that? Meshach. What kind of name is that? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Whoa. And then went on and on and on. But it's kind of fun. It's a fun song. And this story also shows up in the Veggie Tales, if you ever watch them. And it's a story, well, let me start reading it. We'll get through at least the beginning of it tonight. It talks about another king. Now, we talked about King Xerxes in Persia. This is another one that was a few years afterward. And the country of Persia had been captured by a place called Babylon. And the king of Babylon at this point was named Nebuchadnezzar. And the king of Babylon decided to build the biggest idol, the biggest statue in the entire land. And he had conquered a lot of lands, and there were a lot of big statues, and his was going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it was completed, the large idol stood 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide, and it was made of gold. So it was big. And the king wanted everybody in his kingdom to worship this shiny new idol that he had set up. He wanted them to sing songs to the idol instead of to God. He wanted them to praise the idol and say how great it was. Oh, and by the way, it looked like him. What a coincidence, huh? So the king made a new law. Then he called all the people in his kingdom together, and he announced his new law. He said, whenever you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, the trumpet, the drum, the guitar, the banjo, the kazoo, whenever you hear any of this, you have to bow down and worship my golden idol. Well, what if you didn't? I mean, hey, there were plenty of people who were taught about the real God and how we shouldn't worship anybody or anything except God. Well, as for them, he said, anyone who does not bow down will be thrown into a fiery furnace. And he meant it. That was not going to happen. Not something he wanted to happen. And as soon as the music began to play, as soon as people began to hear the sound of the harp, the lute, the timbrel, I don't know what a timbrel is, but I think it's a drum, the kazoo, the banjo, the mandolin, the auto harp, any of these things and anything like that, anything that made music, they bowed down and they worshipped the idol because they didn't want to get thrown in the fiery furnace. But then there were 3 men who worked for the king, and they weren't going along with it. Their names were, any guesses? Do you remember the song? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego lived in Judah a long time ago. They had funny names and they lived far away, but they set an example you can follow today. And this is a story that you ought to know about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Of course, right now it's getting late, and instead of Abednego, to bed you go. And I'll pick up on their story tomorrow. Good night.